What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Weisberg.
And I'm Michael Weisenberg.
Welcome back to Viseland. Playoffs still in full swing right now. We just saw an interesting game out of Atlanta versus Milwaukee. No Trae Young. That's bad. Then Giannis gets hurt. That's even worse. So definitely an interesting series so far. They're tied 2 games apiece at this time. We also have Phoenix up 3-2 against the Clippers, so they're 1 game away. So definitely it's been interesting. Not as everyone predicted in the preseason. That's what I'll say definitely on the playoffs so far. What's your thought, Ben?
Well, you had the terrible narrative that there was no star power in the conference finals, but I guess that kind of played out in at least the Eastern Conference, where both of the stars of said teams got hurt. Giannis, it looked like a hyperextension of some sort on his knee. Didn't look good. He was able to get back to the locker room like under his own power and everything there, but like when you saw the injury, definitely didn't look like it looked like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to make predictions, but it just didn't look good.
Yeah.
And and then with Trae Young, obviously an injury that made him miss a full basketball game in the postseason, did not matter tonight.
Yeah, Clint Capella with the over the board.
Yeah, he was doing the Larry Bird, and then which, by the way, I'm pretty sure was his first make outside of the paint in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was gonna say the first shot, not just tip in or kind of low post.
At least outside of the paint. And then Lou Will did a very admirable
first playoff start for Lou Williams.
Crazy. But he did a great job. Bogdanovich did a really good job. You saw Cam Reddish getting some burn, and he put in 12 points. You had Danilo, doing his scoring thing. John Collins with only 4 points, but was a plus 26. So must have been doing something right in his minutes on the floor. And the Hawks really took it to them. And kind of send it back to Milwaukee with the series tied. Game 5 of Clippers Suns, you saw a really impressive performance by Paul George, who gets ripped on all the time. He did give that name to himself of playoff P. He looked like playoff P in that one because those 30 points in the second half, really, really impressive. I kind of feel like he's been, for a majority of the series, the best player on the floor. It'll just be up to the Suns to really come together and try and close the series. Ivica Zubac was out with an injury there as well, and they went small, and that's really been working well for the Clippers, it seems. And then DeMarcus Cousins giving them some good minutes as well. Reggie Jackson is absolutely on fire. Marcus Morris is had a hot shooting night, and you get those Nick Batum center minutes, and it gets pretty interesting there.
Nick's he's always had that length.
Yeah,
but definitely that it's that.
I think it's the fact that now he's also 250. Let's say.
Definitely not that. Not bringing the same athleticism as he did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's bigger. He straight up.
I mean,
he's like old school Boris Diaw, who started out as a wing and became a big man.
Yeah, just keep packing him on. But what we wanted to do this week is, obviously last week, a lot of love. Thank you guys for that tuned in, liked, subscribed, gave some shout outs. We did our post lottery mock draft of the lottery. So we just did those 1 through 14. Now we're going to give it to you the rest of the draft. So we got 15 through 30, just to kind of catch everyone up to speed on what went down last week, just so they're, not feeling like they're coming in, not knowing what happened. With the number 1 pick, we got the Detroit Pistons. They're going with Cade Cunningham. Number 2, Houston Rockets, Evan Mobley, USC. Number 3, Cleveland Cavaliers, Jalen Green. from the G League. Number 4, Toronto Raptors, Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. Number 5, Orlando Magic, Jonathan Kuminga from the G League. Number 6, Oklahoma City Thunder with Scottie Barnes from Florida State. Number 7, Golden State Warriors from the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're going to go with Josh Giddey from Australia. Number 8 is the Orlando Magic from the Chicago Bulls. They're going to go with Moses Moody from Arkansas. Number 9, Sacramento Kings from Franz Wagner from Michigan. Number 10, New Orleans Pelicans, Jaden Springer. Sorry.
Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee. I was like, there's like 2 Jadens I was like thinking on. Number 11, James Bouknight, UConn. Number 12, San Antonio Spurs. Going with Alperen
Sengun from Besiktas.
I knew I was going to butcher that one. And then we got number 13, we got Davion Mitchell from Baylor. Number 14, this one shocked me, but I'm very excited for it if this were to go down. And honestly, a lot of buzz, top 20s happening for sure, probably. We're going with Chris Duarte, University of Oregon Ducks.
For sure, probably. I may have gone a little overboard with Chris Duarte 14, but we'll see what happens. There were a few guys that I left out of the lottery that I wasn't so sure about. And as the week went on, as the combine went on, we have a little bit better of an idea of what's going to happen. And yes, we'll definitely do an update before the actual NBA draft because we want to get as close to right as possible. It's so much easier to do a mock draft based completely on your own opinion than it is to do in predicting what a team will take. And the other unfortunate thing is when it is on your opinion, that's when you get judged even more harshly. But usually people at least will be like, oh, well, you're kind of trying to predict what these guys are going to do. But yeah, still a fun exercise nonetheless. And we just decided to fill out the rest of the first round. And then now we'll be able to drop a few jewels from what happened in this past week's NBA draft combine, where there were measurements, there were athleticism testing, interviews. They had some agency workouts and they had scrimmages as well. So yeah, and shooting drills. So yeah, we have, I think, a little bit better of an idea of who really helped themselves here, who may have moved up. And yeah, we'll just give you, as always, kind of focus on the players, give an idea of who these players are that are being chosen in the 2021 NBA draft.
So we're starting the lottery. The lottery's over. We're going with that first out of the lottery pick. We got the Washington Wizards.
Yes. I had such a hard time leaving this guy out of the lottery. And I think I made a mistake because I think he's definitely going to be a lottery pick. Always been somebody that I've been high on. I had a chance to see him at the 2019 October minicamp at USA Basketball, and he was one of the standouts there and have been following him since. And, just he's the best athlete in the draft, I would say. Yeah. And so let's talk about his combine numbers.
Let's talk about his name first. We got Keon. It's Keon
Johnson. True enough.
University of Tennessee. So, in case you're not Sherlock Holmes at home.
Yes, Keon Johnson out of University of Tennessee. I wanted to talk about the fact that, so he measured in at 6'3.5" without shoes, 6'4" and 3/4 with shoes. So he's close to 6'5". 6'7" and a quarter wingspan, $185 if you round up. Let's talk about the standing reach, because he has an 8'1" standing reach, which to me does not make sense. Now, there was an even more egregious standing reach that had been measured at 8'6" when he had tried out for the U18 team when right before his freshman year, and that was Ayo Dosunmu. So he, for whatever reason, measured with an 8'1.5" standing reach. So 8/0.5. The other guy who was 8'5" is Davion Mitchell. And that would make sense. He measured as 6 feet without shoes, 6'1¼ with shoes, 6'4¼ wingspan. And so yes, he's probably pretty small. A guy who measures like 3 inches taller and 3 inches more in wingspan and is 0.5 inches more in standing reach, it's just crazy. So yes, that's like my standing reach. I'll probably go into a few other ones that I thought were pretty bad, but I think Keon Johnson's likely standing reach is 8'4", at least somewhere around there. Even so, he would still have the highest vertical leap in the NBA draft combine. He measured with the highest in history by like a wide margin, and he was 3.5 inches more than Jericho Sims, who also had a botched standing reach, by the way. But yeah, so Keon Johnson's vertical numbers were 41.5 inches in terms of standing vertical, 48 inches in terms of max. You likely take off like 2 or 3 inches from those. They're still amazing. He also had a ridiculous 3/4 court sprint time. And Keon Johnson, the things that he brings to the table, just crazy athleticism, a lot of energy, some defensive versatility. Like he can guard multiple different positions. And then in terms of like, ball skills and shooting, still pretty raw, but, showed some good things as far as his passing. And then, you just kind of hope that it all comes together for him. And, should have some ability to finish around the basket as well. He's like he'll be one of the more absurd athletes, like from that position in the NBA. When you get to like the touch points, so like that's like the standing vert reach, the max vert reach, like he's crazy for a guard. And like head and shoulders above everybody else, even without like the crazy low standing reach. So I wouldn't be as concerned about his standing reach, like just in general, because I'm sure people look at that 8'1" and think like, oh, he's really tiny. But I think it was a mistake. And he still is was something that we all expected, and that was a crazy athlete.
Yeah. Definitely he was was his reputation coming in, and he definitely got to prove that at the combine. So, and Washington's like in an interesting place, what direction they're going. So they're always in flux, I guess, with Russell Westbrook, plus probably Beal.
Yeah. I just figure that they can add depth.
Yeah. No, I think they're just going to try to add who they can, to give some energy, give some spark. But number 16, we have a team we are going to hear a lot of. We heard last time, we're going to hear even more. That's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Care of the Boston Celtics. They're picking number 16.
Yeah, so they added that pick, and I have them taking Kai Jones. I just figured that, they did just get rid of like 2 big men. And Kai Jones he's a really intriguing kind of upside play here. Yes, like his raw stats do not like jump off of the page or anything like that, but it's his agility. He measured pretty well. Like in the past, he hadn't measured quite as well in the Eurocamp, but yeah, he finishes with like pretty like standard center size. And what Kai Jones really brings is like the defensive ability. He moves his feet exceptionally well and can potentially like switch on to different positions there. Had a good steal rate. His block rate wasn't anything crazy, but I think there's definitely potential as a rim protector. And then like the flashes of ball skills and the flashes of shooting, I think that's where, you kind of bank on Kai Jones as somebody who, if you have like a development plan for, some really good things can come out of it. And that could lead to a lot of lineup versatility.
Definitely in Oklahoma City, obviously adding a lot of assets, looking to rebuild. So yeah, definitely bringing in some post players, because obviously Al Horford's gone. We'll see what Kemba does next year as well. He's going to definitely be looking to score.
Mhm.
Number 17, we got the Memphis Grizzlies. They are going with,
I have them taking Corey Kispert.
we've had in the lottery prior.
I had Corey Kispert in the lottery. I still like, there's still a chance he could go in the lottery. I feel like they're one of my big things. So this is kind of like also probably a Joe Harris thing as well. And you saw in the playoffs, and you shouldn't compare them 1-to-1, but there's been so many links between them. They're both like Washington guys and everything there. And we saw with Joe Harris is that once his shot was gone, there wasn't a whole lot else he was bringing to the table there. And yes, he shot exceptionally well during the season. Like it was the point where like, really smart basketball people are like, oh, he's like the possible like guy that gets the Nets to that next level. Well, that didn't happen. Especially when other players went down, you would figure Joe Harris would kind of step up. It seemed like he was fairly predictable, and he shot exceptionally poorly in the series against Milwaukee. And Corey Kispert, I think you kind of found that during the Final Four, is that he became a bit predictable, and he's good in transition, and does some other like good things as a scorer, but like the shooting is really what you're banking on. And if he's not an exceptional defender, is that something you're really still going to spend like a really high pick on? I have a feeling that most likely yes, because he is still a really good player, and he, his shooting projection is very solid. But yeah, like I think there's a chance that he goes a little lower than what was kind of expected at earlier points in like making the mock drafts.
Yeah, he's been all over the board. I think. I mean, even going into the year, he wasn't really first round.
I think it
had like
always
that first, early, second kind of grading, and then kind of played up, and then what you're getting. It's just do you value it that high versus hanging back? But yeah, no, Memphis would be an interesting thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, and well, the reason I have him going to Memphis is Memphis has needed shooting. They drafted Desmond Bane last year, and that was really big for them in terms of getting like a really solid shooter off of the bench. And I figure Corey Kispert can give them yet another one.
And then number 18, we are back to Oklahoma City, care of the Miami Heat.
Yes, and I have Oklahoma City. So we had them taking Scottie Barnes. We have them taking Kai Jones. I kind of rounded out with like a wing and have them taking Zaire Williams. And Zaire was somebody who really struggled as a freshman, but I think brings a lot of good things to the table. The shot making ability has kind of always been there. It's just like, he has really high release, can make difficult shots, and like he's always been a good free throw shooter. So the fact that he like throughout most of his high school career hasn't shot like exceptionally well from three, but I think there's still potential for him to do that. I think a lot of that's based on like a lack of functional strength, where he's really struggled, but good athlete, can really move his feet on defense as well, and has some versatility there. Good passer, and he measured in at close to like, close to 6'10", but let's call him 6'9.5". Still great size, and I feel like he has a future as an NBA wing. Like adding strength will be a huge key for him, but there's a chance he could be a steal. And the comparison is kind of like fitting into the mold of somebody else who struggles as a freshman, like a Jaden McDaniels, and that there are a lot of similarities in the way that they play, and that defensive versatility, and then that upside as an offensive player as well.
Yeah, he was number 6 in the RCI, and we'd had him in some, our lotteries kind of towards the end.
Yeah.
you know, 10, 14, but yeah,
I think there's still a chance, like, I think our last mock, we had him 2 Golden State.
Yeah.
And I could see that even being a possibility.
And he definitely had one dunk at Stanford where he was over quite a good number of people on it. It was under the basket out of bounds. They just threw it up to him.
But the biggest thing with him was like that I would remember is him getting pushed off balance and like, if he had the slightest bit of contact, like it would really throw things off. But he did have some moments for sure.
And then coming in at number 19, we have one of the surprise teams from the past season. We got the New York Knicks.
Yes.
Coming off a good year for them. They're obviously they have some guys that they're comfortable with, moving forward for the short term.
Yeah, and they got a fantastic choice in the first round last year that I doubted, but he had a great rookie season in Emmanuel Quickly. And we're choosing kind of like a somewhat similar player in Nishan Bones Highland. He's somebody with a great deal of shot versatility, had really good combine measurements as well. I think with a 6'9" wingspan, only played 1 game at the NBA combine, had 17 points, had a barrage of 3-pointers. He's somebody that is going to get buckets and then provide maybe a little bit more on-ball equity as well. I think he really helped himself in the draft combine. Just somebody that you can tell has just played a lot of basketball in his times and just like is a gamer. It would have been fantastic to see him against Oregon in the NCAA tournament. He played for VCU, who unfortunately had COVID issues.
The only team in the tournament to have to forfeit a game.
Yeah. So I think Bones is like a possible top 20 pick, and I could see the Knicks being the spot for him. So yeah, and they are still looking to add shooting. They shot a lot better this year, but still need a little bit more depth, and I think he could provide that.
No, definitely. I think you got RJ, Julius Randle quickly was good. Just bringing more guys that you can.
I did notice today, like, well, not that this is something that has gone unnoticed, but Julius Randle in the NBA playoffs shot 29.8% from the field. Like, yeah, I'm guessing spacing was an issue.
Well, and Obi Toppin is still there, so maybe he gets some more playing time in year number 2. Yeah, the Knicks, again, at least they exceeded expectations. They were back in the playoffs. People wanted to hang up Julius Randle's jersey in the rafters for winning most improved player. So, they seem to be psychotically happy in their own way as Knicks
home court advantage. It was a good year for sure. They exceeded expectations.
And then number 20 is a team that, as we discussed earlier, still going in the playoffs, and that's the Atlanta Hawks.
Amazing. The incredible story there. Hats off to Travis Schlenk, fellow bald man, who drafted just an absurd amount of wing depth. And, he took the chance on Clint Capella. He and John Collins working together. Trae Young for Luka Doncic, jury's still out, but they are 2-2 in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Milwaukee may have lost their best player. There's a chance they go to the NBA. And I wouldn't write them out even there. So, this is the year to kind of go all in there. And, if Trae Young is healthy, it's hard to bet against them anymore. It's crazy.
Because again, when you look at it, they are a very interesting team. They have some guys that can score a bunch of. Yeah, Herter's been playing well. Now that you got Reddish, he's back again. So
they're young. I have them going with a player who is somebody who could go in the lottery, is somebody who seems to be pretty polarizing and all over the place, and had a narrative that I thought was kind of not necessarily correct. And that's Jalen Johnson out of Duke. He did leave the team early. He had injury issues. There were maybe some other factors as well, but I tend to think that, he is a talented player. He's always somebody who had some ball handling and playmaking ability.
He fills a stat sheet because he had a few games at Duke where he was like, there was not a
He was
category.
inconsistent. He was inconsistent. He did kind of struggle in the half court. Jury's still very much out on his shooting, and I know he shot like 8 of 18 from 3, so people think he's like a great shooter, but
That's a very small sample size.
Yeah, extremely small sample size, and he kind of has a hitch on a shot, but he was always somebody who was very talented, quite athletic, can really run as well. Gave you some stocks, let's say, as a defender. So yeah, he's somebody that I see more as a big, but he would give Atlanta like that more depth and versatility, and kind of like a guy who could possibly play a couple different positions. So yeah, I could see Atlanta being quite interested if Jalen Johnson was still available here. I have a feeling he might go even higher than this, but I have him going 22 Atlanta right now.
Yeah, I think we had him 14 in our last mock draft. But yeah, he's a very interesting player in his versatility and his ability to kind of do a lot of things. But obviously, again, at the NBA, it all comes down to shooting. And we've seen, some guys from Duke. I don't remember Josh McRoberts. Not that they're alike, but everyone's like, oh, the NBA is gonna have to change for Josh McRoberts. That was like an ESPN article. And you're like, no.
Yeah, that was a terrible article.
Yeah, it's like the NBA changed and he was left behind. But yeah, just like it's interesting, like jack of a lot of trades, and like what can he become the master of?
Number 1 in the 2005 RSCI, Josh McRoberts.
Joshy McBuckets. He spent a good amount of time on the Blazers bench. As most players should. You got to at least spend 6 months on a Blazers bench to really have made it in the league as not successful. Number 21, we got the New York Knicks getting this pick from the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes, and so I have the Knicks selecting Usman Garuba from Real Madrid. He's, to me, Usman is somebody that is really interesting in the fact that he provides first off, he's played as a role player for one of the best teams in Europe for the last couple of years. Was always really good in youth system as well. Has kind of stagnated a bit as an offensive player, but it seems to be picking up some. He has some ball skills. He can pass a little bit. His corner 3 is kind of coming around, though it doesn't have the greatest shooting projection. But yeah, you get Usman because he can make quick decisions, and he is a fantastic defender. And then I figured the Knicks could possibly play him small, as a small ball center. I think that may be his calling card, but I have a feeling he'll be somewhere around this range. And I could see him being a possibility here.
And with a lot of European, is he gonna, come over immediately, or does he have a buyout? Okay,
he's coming over.
He's ready to come over. Sweet. Yeah, no,
I'm pretty certain.
Nice. Yeah, well, small ball centers are where it's at. If you can shoot the 3, you'll definitely get on the court. But
that's the big concern, is if he can shoot the 3 or not. But yeah, he's he's really strong. He's maybe only 6'7", 6'8", but he has a really long wingspan as well. I think almost Scottie Barnes-ish dimensions, in that he has a 6'8", with close to a 7'3" wingspan. Moves really well. You picture him as being a possible small ball 5.
Awesome. And then number 22, we got the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yes,
a lot going on there,
for sure. I have them taking Trey Mann. The Lakers, let's just say they struggled to shoot the basketball a lot this season, and have for the past couple seasons. So can definitely use that. Trey Mann is somebody that I feel he was heavily on ball at Florida, but just a lot of 3-point creation there, and shooting ability. He literally grew this season. He started off at Florida being 6'2", 6'3". Now he's, I think, Measure like at least 6'4". But yeah, Trey is somebody that I just feel the Lakers would love to have if he somehow slipped to 22. Think that there's just, he really has like a rare ability to create those 3-pointers. Like most of his 3-point makes were unassisted this season. And I have a feeling that if he had the chance to play off ball, I know he shot a little worse off ball, but I feel like if he had the chance to play off ball, like he could do some really great things as well.
And do you think Schroeder's going to come back to the Lakers? Like,
no.
I was like, he's asking for a lot of money, and I was like, yeah, that's probably not gonna.
Yeah. So yeah, Trey was 6'3.25" without shoes. Pretty small. Like we knew he had pretty much like a barely like 1 inch or less than 1 inch wingspan differential. But yeah, just that ball handling ability, the ability to create 3-pointers for himself and score. I think that teams will really like there are a number of teams that could really work with that.
And there's definitely room to run with LeBron, because obviously there's going to be some changes. And Alex Caruso is having a little offseason trouble himself right now. So LeBron's going to need some depth if he doesn't have the reigning people's champion of Alex Caruso. So definitely he's got to keep his eyes out there. Number 23, we got the Houston Rockets via the Portland Trailblazers for basically Portland got Robert Covington. Houston is picking right here.
Mm-hmm.
What direction are they going?
I have Houston taking Sharif Cooper. Yes, they still have John Wall, but I feel like Houston just needs like an influx of talent. And then with Sharif, he does a few things that are like incredibly rare. And one of those things is like he's a fantastic passer. And then he can get to the paint like few other players. He's just ridiculously explosive. The shooting is a concern, so like a lot like John Wall there. He did not measure at 6'3.5" without shoes. That was a typo, as I think everybody knew. But apparently is 6 feet without shoes, which I think is also a typo. He's tiny. Sharif is not a very big.
Listed him at 6'1", so they
yeah.
And that's like that's
and it was generous. It was a little generous. If he's genuinely 6 feet without shoes, like then it's not. But I'm not sure. But yeah, like even at like Nike Skills Academy a couple years ago, he measured with like a 6'3.5" wingspan. But he's tiny. He's not a very big guard. And then the shooting, like just as far as outside shooting and mid range, like it wasn't going down a lot. Has kind of, like the awkward, like doesn't get like a ton of bounce on his jump shot. But yeah, like he just does a couple things that are special. Also isn't like the most outstanding defender either, but so dynamic as an offensive player. I think people may indeed be overthinking it with him, and just like, kind of like there's a possibility he way outplays the spot by just being that good at getting to the basket, at breaking down defenses, and at setting up his teammates. So yeah, he I think is right around this range as far as the draft is concerned, and just does a couple things exceptionally well.
And if you're gonna watch anyone's highlight tape, he'd be one of the ones I'd recommend. It's actually like he's a very entertaining player. Like I think fans will like him immediately. And then the Houston Rockets, they are back again at number 24 from the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yes, and I have them going in an interesting direction and choosing Sharif's college teammate. And that's JT Thor, who is somebody that I feel really helped himself at the NBA Draft Combine. First off, it was I think it was kind of common knowledge, but maybe not. But he, I think when you Googled his name, it said he was born in 2001, and then he like corrected that and said, I'm actually only 18 years old. I'm born in 2002. So yeah, he'll be 18 years old at the start of the draft. Measured with 9'2.5" standing reach. And he is somebody that I feel like he and Kai Jones have some similarities, and that, there's just a great deal of upside there. He shot a lot of 3-pointers and not a ton went in, but there's certainly shooting potential. Like, he's a lefty, and even had like some shot creation, like kind of equity at times. And then just a really good athlete too. And somebody that can really move well on the court, got to the free throw line a ton, had solid, like, steal and block numbers also, can finish above the rim. So yeah, I feel like JT Thor is somebody that is just kind of interesting, and that he's possibly like, somebody that can provide you some defensive versatility. And I think while he is still on the skinny side, he measured at only 203 pounds, at like, I think 6'9" without shoes. He is somebody that I could see being like a 4-5 that is worth taking a gamble on, because it could really pay off.
Yeah, I think Houston's going to have plenty, playing time to go around. There's their team that's probably projecting to be back in the lottery again next year, kind of based on.
Not even guaranteed. Well, they're drafting Evan Mobley.
And
then they have Christian Wood. We'll see what happens, Chase. I think you're running Houston off a little too quickly there, bud.
I am, and I will look back on this, possibly be wrong, but I might be right. So there's
free agency, sir. There's free agency.
There is, and people do like to go to Texas because of the taxes. So that always.
Who's that supposed to be?
I don't even know. I just thinking of like an NBA player's agent being like, you can go to Houston because of the taxes.
We know no agents that sound like that. So just throwing that out there.
No, they're hiring, some 95-year-old from Florida. He was an agent back in the old NBL before it was the NBA.
This is like pre-merger agent.
Yeah. But no, there's a lot of guys from Texas. People enjoy that state. I, for one, not one of them, but hey.
Have you ever been
to the airport? Actually, no, I've been to Dallas. No, I've been to Austin.
Oh, you went to Austin? Yeah.
But Austin doesn't people don't like count that, because it's like Austin's like Portland in a different.
Like Texas is like anywhere else, man. There's some great spots. Don't hate. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Let's move past this.
If someone wants to fly me out to Texas to prove me wrong that it is a good place,
yeah,
by all means, Venmo, whatever you want to do, let me know. I'll gladly take your money and think.
Watch game 1 of the 2016 NBA Finals in Dallas with Saganya Diop. It was a blast.
I'm sure he was very happy you were able to attend. He didn't think you were going to make it.
Yeah. Well,
But back to the state.
Anybody could hang out at the Omnia Hotel.
Back to the state and city that I live in. We got number 25. We got the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yes. Isaiah Jackson is who I have the Los Angeles Clippers selecting. They it seemed like a lot of their centers went down, or at least Serge Ibaka did. And while Ivica Zubac is somebody that they seem to be pretty happy with, and the minutes that he's playing, they did bring in Boogie Cousins. I figure they might go with, they eventually got rid of their first round pick from a couple years ago, Fiondu Kabengele, and Isaiah Jackson is a fantastic athlete. His Kentucky combine measurements were a little weird, but he has center size, and he is just really great in terms his block percentage was out of this world. He could finish above the rim. He showed a little bit of an outside game, which I think people have gotten maybe a tad too high on. But yeah, there are certainly athletic tools and reasons why he's somebody that you could try and develop into being a center that plays some great minutes for you. So yeah, I know that he's kind of been projected to go quite a bit higher than this on some mock drafts. But yeah, I think this would be a good spot for him as well.
He'd still be that first Kentucky guy off the board.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like one of the another like really athletic big man in this draft, and there seem to be quite a few.
No, and I think I feel like end of the first round's always a good place to get those guys that you just want to have a little potential with. But number 26, we have the Denver Nuggets.
Yes.
The MVP Nikola Jokic, unfortunate injury to Jamal Murray.
Yeah. And one thing we saw that they need a little bit of is guard depth. I would say, they have a good backup in Monte Morris, who I thought played some fantastic minutes in the playoffs. Facundo Campazzo is a good guard. But they could use a little bit of a scoring pop off the bench. And the guy that I have them taking is somebody that I was quite a bit higher on. But I'm like a little worried about, because Jared Butler out of Baylor was not allowed to compete at the NBA draft combine. There was, I guess, like the league, I forget what it was even called, but they decided against allowing him to compete. He has had heart issues before. I'm not exactly sure. I should have done maybe more research on this, but yeah, he's had heart issues before. It was actually the reason he wasn't admitted into Alabama and eventually went to Baylor. And Jared Butler, he has one of the best handles in the draft, was one of the best players in college basketball, can shoot, can create, was much better, as a playmaker for others this season. Was, I think, first team all Big 12 is in defense as well. So he's not a huge player, but he's somebody that you can see as a combo guard and just working really well as like playing next to like a bigger initiator. Could play next to Jamal Murray, could play for Jamal Murray. Like I think he would be a really nice addition for Denver.
Yeah, I think giving Jamal that ability to play on and off the ball himself as well. Because Jared Butler, not like a true point guard necessarily, but definitely someone who can mix it up in the backcourt. And hopefully the medical flag is not a big because that's always just
we've seen other players be medically flagged and them still have successful NBA careers and even long NBA careers. So but when it's a heart issue, like I don't know enough about it to not have him in the draft, but I'm still worried right now. So I think this is like the reason I have him in a lower range than I would have anticipated. But yes, like Jared Butler is still somebody with that experience and ability where you would figure, like, if you're looking for somebody later in the first round to come in and play some good minutes for you right away, like Jared Butler is one of those names that you look at.
No, definitely was a leader on Baylor. Number 27, we got the Brooklyn Nets.
Yep.
What do we get? It has a lot.
Have the Brooklyn Nets drafting Josh Christopher. This is a player who is like one of those, kind of explosive scorers. I think he's also just another talented player for Brooklyn to have on their team. And yes, like he is more of a scorer than a shooter, but really strong. Somebody with, I think, some defensive potential as well. Kind of like almost in that like maybe like Bruce Brown kind of build. And I just think that he helped himself some at the combine as well, played pretty well in scrimmages, and still somebody that I feel like is a possible first rounder. He did struggle this year at Arizona State. It's like the team was a mess. And wasn't like a huge playmaker for others, but I think was doing a little bit of that at the combine, showing a little bit more of his playmaking ability. And then somebody who's great in transition, would be another dangerous offensive piece for the Brooklyn Nets.
And also rumored he's going to be doing some games in the Drew League as well, which is back this year after being off last year. He's had a couple big games at the Drew before in previous leagues. Not that that's the NBA, but still just a cool to think if you're in the Los Angeles area, definitely something to keep an eye on because it's fun to see, just guys like that go off of these kind of a little more free-willing games. Then number 28, we got the Philadelphia 76ers coming off their disappointing loss.
I have the Philadelphia 76ers selecting a player that I also like quite a bit. And he was luckily, so I was so worried with this guy because I thought I was giving some bad information. And that is the last thing I want to do. I hope to give as much good draft information to the people out there. Like that's my ultimate goal. And if I do give bad information, I try and, say, oh, I was wrong. Not afraid to do that at all. In this case, I was a little bit wrong. He was longer than I thought he was. I'd seen a lot of people like, I had felt like I had seen somebody say that Miles McBride had a 6'8" wingspan. So I went with that. I felt like I had seen it somewhere and I felt like it was a pretty good source. He had a 6'8" and 3/4 wingspan. And I'd heard like some other people saying like, oh, he's only like 6'4", like, oh, it's like barely, longer than his height. So yes, Miles McBride, very long. And that is one of the reasons why he is an excellent transition defender. He does some great things at the point of attack. And I think he also like has some really good off-ball moments too. This season, he really improved as a shooter also and like was a great deal more confident there. He's not the most dynamic playmaker, but he is somebody that I just really think could be a solid role player. And I think that he's like right around this range, end of the first round. And I think like a pretty wide range, I would say from like 20 to 40, I would think. But yeah, Miles McBride to the Philadelphia 76ers is what I have. Just another really good defender. And I think, he's somebody that I trust developing as a shooter as well. And those are two things that I think Philadelphia could really use. And fits with their identity.
Yeah. Number 29, we got the Phoenix Suns still at it in the conference finals.
Yeah.
They got Chris Paul obviously in his later years, Devin Booker though, and a lot of the other guys pretty young.
For sure. And like what I've been saying constantly about the Phoenix Suns is how incredible it is for them to have two high-level contributors still on the rookie contract. Like it's absurd. And plus they still have another year of them on that contract. So yeah, they were ahead of schedule this year also. Yeah. And a fantastic job by the front office there and James Jones and and the coaching staff, Monty Williams, and all the assistants. But I have them taking Roko Prkačin from Sabona Zagreb. I feel like, they're maybe missing like a bit of depth at the 4. And I know like they kind of have like the 3 people they use in Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson kind of like is the, Cam's like a 3-4 kind of hybrid. But yeah, I think Roko is somebody that is going to take some time, but he has that athletic ability, shooting potential that you really would look for. Even like, some playmaking equity there as well. And is able to attack closeouts, able to shoot. I think that it could be a worthwhile pick. One of the younger players in the NBA draft. And somebody I also think like, right around this range and would be even higher on my board. I just think there's a lot of upside there with Roko.
Nice. And yeah, a lot of upside on the Suns, honestly. I think it's pretty interesting that they barely missed the playoffs last year and now they're possibly in the NBA finals. So definitely a big swing.
What a difference Chris Paul makes.
So, and then hopefully for Chris Paul gets a chance to at least get in the finals. And then number 30, we had the best record in the league. not the best postseason, sadly. It's the Utah Jazz that might be also looking to shake some things up in some different places.
Yeah, Jason, you don't seem sad enough.
Because I mean, I'm indifferent on Utah, honestly.
And I'm realizing that I left this player off and I had wanted to have him in the first round. So I am switching my pick that I given to you earlier, and I'm taking Trey Murphy III for Utah. I think he's one of the better shooters in the draft. And then was also like showed really good athleticism, still relatively new to the game. But yeah, like he was like right around like the 50, 40, 90 mark, and is like another kind of like big wing there, but a little more athletic than some of their other kind of, 3-4 combos. So yeah, I have Trey Murphy III. I think like is fairly like entrenched in at least that first round range, and I wouldn't think he would go much further after this, as just kind of like one of those combo forwards with defensive potential and one of the better shooters this year, like among NCAA NBA draftees.
That would be our first round. That's 30 picks in there, but looking, around, there's definitely still some talent out there. I know this is actually funny. I got an email at work from someone trying to sell me software. They checked out the show this is our last mock draft, and he was an Illini alumnus, and he was very upset that Ayu Dosunmu was not in the first round. Sadly, Ayu still not in the first round there, but obviously, potential, but
yeah, if he had a better standing reach, I think. No, just kidding.
But the thing with Ayu Dosunmu that's interesting is like there was the thing going around the other day that like last year when he declared, he was the only player that actually like would give like follow-up like notes to teams being like thanking them for like the opportunity, which is pretty.
That is nice.
It's a pretty it's like one of those things.
Great season. He did, and there's certainly a possibility he could go into the first round.
He's on that. He's
going to get drafted. But yeah, I'm not completely sure if it ends up being in the first round or not at this point.
And then you also got like Luka Garza coming out, but obviously like
yeah,
that's a thing, but it's just like, as we've talked about with like Wooden Award winners and that kind of thing. Like he's just
well, and also with Luka Garza is like my big thing with him is he shot really well. He's been one of the better players in college basketball the past couple of years, but you saw him against the University of Oregon, Jason. What do you think of Luka Garza's defense?
Oh, like it was not really.
He was somebody that Oregon went right past.
Yeah, he can give up. He can get two. He can give up two.
Yeah, so he's like, to me, unless his offense is like incredible, where I think like he finished last in the 3/4 court sprint by like a good amount. And he finished last in both standing vert and max vert. And he showed up at like a much better weight, and like he still, I think he was like still like 11.7 body fat percentage, but like only 242 pounds. How much better is he going to get as an athlete? Like those are things that I would be really worried about. And then you like, unless he's shooting like the 44% from the floor, which I don't think is any guarantee, because like even if you look, Frank Kaminsky in his last year at University of Wisconsin shot like 41% from three, and he's been like a 35% 3-point shooter in the NBA. Like I think he had one season where he was like maybe like 37-38%. Yeah, so I think it's going to be tougher for Luka Garza to get his shot in the NBA. He's not somebody that you are going to be afraid of attacking closeouts. He's never been the best passer and decision maker there either. And then, yeah, like I just think if he was a little bigger, like, and it's crazy to say because he's a big guy, but NBA centers are crazy huge. Like, and I just don't think he's like big enough to like bully and dominate NBA centers. And then he's like a one position defender and a drop defender. So yeah, I don't think Luka Garza is somebody that's likely to go in the first round. One guy who I may be kind of sleeping on, he had such a great year for Mega Soccer Bet, and if that's how you pronounce it, and that's Filip Petrusev. Also like shooting absurdly well, had like, great, led the ABA Liga in scoring, shot really well from three, and was like a consensus All-American at Gonzaga the year before. So yeah, I think there's certainly a chance there. But yeah, like for the most part, I think most of these guys are at least around that range. BJ Boston is somebody that I've always like still felt pretty high on, and still think there's a chance that he could get into the first round as well. Think that there's a lot of potential there, has good physical dimensions, has ball skills, upside is a playmaker and shooter, just didn't necessarily do it that well this year. And a player that I think like really helped himself also in the combine, just in terms of like being drafted, where he was always around that range, but Joe Wieskamp played really well and had a huge, I think a couple huge combine scrimmages. I know one, he had 26 points. So yeah, he's somebody that, could possibly play himself into that range, really good shooter. He didn't play his best game against Oregon, but was still somebody that you had to worry about, and still, has a little bit of playmaking equity as well. I would not at all be surprised if Joe Wieskamp goes before Luka Garza in the NBA draft.
And were there any other guys that you just want to mention that are kind of on that fringe of that, like,
yeah, so
first, early second-ish?
David Johnson, good guard out of Louisville, really improved as a shooter this year, always was a good playmaker and provides some defensive versatility. Terrence Shannon Jr. does the same thing from Texas Tech. The shooting is going to be a big key for him, but really good athlete and defender. And then the guy that I originally had Utah taking until I had realized my Trey Murphy screw up was Josh Primo, who I think helped himself a lot. He's, I believe, going to be the youngest player in the draft, or is like fighting neck and neck with Roko Percussion. And Josh Primo, he measured pretty well at the combine. He played one combine game and did quite well there, and then decided not to play the next game. He showed a little bit more playmaking equity there, and then always been a really good shooter. He's somebody, PD Webb, who wrote a great article on his Patreon and on Perspective Insight about pre-drafting. And Josh Primo is somebody that if you feel like he could possibly rise to be like a lottery pick next year or a high first round pick next year, you might as well take him this year. Yeah. And that, I think that applies to like one person PD pointed out was JT Thor as well. And I'm sure there are other players here who apply to that also. But yeah, Josh Primo, I think, could be right around that range also.
Awesome. Well, there's still a lot of time between now and the draft, so definitely not the last mock draft you're gonna see prior to it. And obviously there will probably be some movement between now and then. Definitely a lot of workouts going on right now.
There will absolutely be movement between now. As much as I'd like to get it all right and just, be prophet of the NBA draft, I am not that. So yes, there will definitely be movement, and there will be things that change. And this is a particularly hard draft to predict. Like after pick 6, I think there's a pretty established top 6, which could still change and still be a tad different in order. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of surprises, I think, in this NBA draft.
Which always makes it exciting to watch when we don't know what's going to happen. I always think of the one, remember NBA.com had the thing and you get points for each one you got right. Yeah. And I remember just like Curtis Borchardt, and everyone's like, he's a lottery pick. And then that cost you like all your points because it was like 30 picks later.
Yeah. I think back then I knew less about the NBA draft, and now there's so much more information out there and so many great resources. So props to that.
definitely look it up before the draft. And then, what else is to look forward to as well is some international basketball. The Olympics, regardless if you want it to happen or not, are trying to trudge along. And so you have Team USA, they've announced their roster. I'm just throwing it out there because they said, based on what happens in the playoffs right now, you could see them starting off the Olympics in some of these games with a shorthanded roster. So I'm not sure if anyone else is going to come into the fold because some of the guys are still going, but you got Bam Adebayo, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, who's still going, Kevin Durant, Jeremy Grant, Draymond Green, Drew Holiday still playing, Zach LaVine, Damian Lillard, Kevin Love, Chris Middleton, still playing, and then Jason Tatum. So interesting. It's 3 UCLA guys, which is cool. Cool for them. They've been advertising that. And then Canada is playing right now and trying to qualify. They just won a game today as well. So you got RJ Barrett playing what he's known.
Yeah, there are a few different qualifiers. One's in Serbia as well. And I know Serbia had a big game today against Dominican Republic and won that. And then, you had Canada beating Greece in their first game in their qualifier, which is in Canada. And there are a couple others going on as well. So we'll see what happens. And, here's hoping that Canada makes their first Olympics since the year 2000, Jason. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, because again, Steve Nash stepped away for a while from playing, and then that's kind of what affected it. And
it shouldn't have to be that. I know Steve Nash was important, but yeah.
Well, it's interesting now too, because Canada's, without Jamal Murray, there's no Dylan Brooks, there's no Chris Boucher, some guys that you would think would
be 23 from Wiggins today and 22 from RJ Barrett. So I know Dwight Powell had a good game as well. There's somebody I'm missing. Oh, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So a lot of NBA firepower on that team.
So let's hope. Here's to hoping, and definitely we'll cover that as it gets closer to that. But obviously, probably hear a lot more about the finals of the draft coming up soon. Any other events on your radar?
We're keeping an eye on that Always Us TBT team, and hoping to give you some news about that very soon.
Yeah, excited for TBT end of July. So definitely, hopefully more to come on that. But thank you guys so much, as always, for coming by, giving us a listen. If you could give us a like and a share and a thumbs up, that would be amazing. We definitely appreciate that. If you like what we're doing here, you can follow both of us at the same time at Viseland. You could always shoot us an email, viselandpod@gmail.com. We're on YouTube, so that's where you can watch. And then you can also listen to us on any podcast platform. So Spotify, Apple, TuneIn, Amazon, wherever you want to get a podcast from, you can find Viseland by searching it. So thank you guys so much, and we will catch you all next week.